This is Queer from the Other Side.
Your queer approach to everything from the paranormal and supernatural realms.
With no subject left unexplored.
I'm Shauna, your resident witch with a talent for hunting ghosts and connecting with Earth's energy.
I'm Alexander, your in-house skeptic, with my own ghost stories and obsession with outer space. But will I ever believe?
And I'm Derek, your on-air spiritualist on a mission to awaken souls to ground their spiritual power into their physical experience, bridging heaven and earth.
Get ready to explore.
Here we go.
The show starts now.
Hello, I'm Intuitive Shauna, and welcome to Queer from the Other Side. We're your queer approach to all things paranormal, leaving nothing left unexplored. I'm your resident witch.
I'm Alexander, and I'm a resident skeptic. I want to believe, but will I ever believe? I don't know.
I don't think you will, and you have the coolest experiences. I'm jealous of the cool stuff that happens, and you're like, no, I can write that off. So I don't personally think you'll ever believe, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you believe in vampires?
I believe in the energy behind, reading this was very exciting. So I like the energy, I like the idea behind it. So we'll find out. We'll dive in.
We're going to dive in because we're going to talk to a real life vampire right now. We have Father Sebastiaan with us. Father Sebastiaan has been active in the vampire subculture since 1992. He is a Master Fangsmith, a published author, and the Impresario of the Endless Night Vampire Ball. Father has appeared on the Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures, CW, History Channel, Discovery Channel, and MTV. His interviews have been in the New York Times, Glamour, Cosmo, Revolver Magazine, many more. He travels all around the world as the world's most famous Fangsmith under the brand Sabertooth Custom Vampire Fangs, and he frequents Los Angeles, New York, Paris, Germany on his annual Fangsmithing tours. He's also the impresario of the Endless Night Vampire Balls, described as the Venetian masquerade ball meets a vampire court with the energy of a rock concert and elegance of a burlesque cabaret. The main event takes place in New Orleans over Halloween weekend, and there's also Endless Night Vampire events in Los Angeles on Valentine's Day weekend and have taken place in Paris, Amsterdam, Dallas, Tampa, and Berlin. Everyone, please welcome Father Sebastiaan to the show.
That was good.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you for joining us. I'm so excited to have you. I have so many questions for you.
I have answers.
I'm ready for it. So I want to, before we dive into all of the bloody goodness of vampire, what is, can you give us a little bit about your history, how you came to this?
Sure. Well, I'm going to disappoint everyone. We don't have sanguine blood cult orgies in the French Quarter.
Damn.
Okay. All my colleagues, we've been accused of this several times, and my team is very disappointed they didn't get invited. So that extreme perception needs to be just forgotten about. We're normal people with unique interests.
That's what I understood most. You can apply all of the beliefs to any kind of lifestyle that you have. Yes. And what I really like about what it preaches, it's very internal. It's about your relationship with the energy around you. Mm-hmm. It's about your own relationship with yourself, finding out more about yourself and subscribing to certain beliefs. But it's very individualistic. It's not, that you have to subscribe to these religious beliefs that try to brainwash everybody. It's like, no, you go on your journey of self-discovery to become part of this world.
Well, being part of the world is not really the goal. The goal is individual self-empowerment, and through that, the collective gets stronger. And it's basically self-help with fangs.
Yes, 100%.
I like that. That's a really great way to put it.
And we started in the gay culture in New York.
Very gay culture. And I know that you have a long history of the party scene of the 90s, which, Party Monster, all that kind of stuff comes from that. There was a very hardcore energy. And that's the same time that the Interview with the Vampire movie came out. And I know you have, a close love for the Vampire Chronicles.
Oh, yes.
But what was it about the 90s? What was going on in the world that people were looking to grab on to this lore, to grab on to this environment, this persona?
Well, the history of the modern vampire mythos and the people's relationship with it has evolved over the years. Okay, it started with John Polidori's Vampire in 1819. He was writing a novel to get back at his gay lover, Lord Byron. So it started queer. Okay, and then we had another Carmilla, queer Carmilla, who was a lesbian vampire story in the 1860s. In the 1840s, we had Varney the Vampire, who was a penny dreadful. And then it all accumulated in Dracula, which was actually a racist story to talk about the invasion of the Slavic people in England. And Dracula was symbolic of the Slavic invasion. And Bram Stoker never went to Transylvania, but he did a really good book. And then we had Nosferatu, and so I think one of the first movies ever made was a vampire movie. Cinema and television have really spoken, and I'll tell you about some vampire movies that you wouldn't think were vampire movies, like Fight Club.
That was a big part of this book too. Yeah,
there's a psychic vampire movie.
Oh yeah.
So what? In the 1960s, the Hammer horror films came out. Then in 1975, so the vampire mythos and how it needs to be understood. The Western modern vampire has a very diverse thing. And Interview with the Vampire. So the first major aspect of that was the collection of all the Victorian vampire stories in Dracula. Okay. Then the next big jump was Interview with the Vampire in 1976 or 75 with Anne Rice. And she wrote about Claudia the vampire as her daughter who died of leukemia. And her husband, Stan, was Lestat, and she was Louis. Okay. And then in the 1980s, we had my favorite vampire novel, Vampire Lestat, come out. And then I think in 1988, The Queen of the Damned came out. But what really changed the vampire world was a role-playing game where there was girls. Girls played Vampire the Masquerade. Mm-hmm. Okay, girls didn't play Dungeons and Dragons at the time because they would be socially destroyed.
Right.
Okay. Girls were in the Neverending Story, but they were secret about it. And Dark Crystal and Labyrinth and Legend and stuff like that. A lot of the Vampire the Masquerade took all the mythologies of the world and put them into different clans of vampires in the same universe. And you can see the media change after that because there was a TV show called Kindred the Embrace in 1996, which was based on Vampire the Masquerade. Then there was Blade, which had the Houses of Vampires, and the Vampire Society that was a direct ripoff of Vampire the Masquerade story, The World of Darkness. And then Underworld got sued by White Wolf, the publisher of Vampire the Masquerade. And I got into the Vampire the Masquerade games because I was looking for real vampires. Okay, and then that was 1993, where I played my first game. And I was involved in the LARP community for about 3 or 4 years. And then my girlfriend goes to me in 1993. She's like, I need fangs for the prom. And on the first Sunday of November 1993, we went to this gaming convention where I was playing Vampire the Masquerade. And we met this guy named Gregor, and he made us both custom fangs. And my grandfather was an orthodontist, and I went to my grandfather. I'm like, Grandpa, can you teach me how to do this? And he was like, you're Satanist.
Right.
You're satanic. I'm like, Grandpa, it's Halloween. And so my aunt hooked me up with my aunt's also a dentist, and she hooked me up with a prosthodontist in Bedminster, New Jersey. It was a very posh area. And the deal was I would learn how to make fangs out of dental acrylic, and he would do the permanent ones. So we had all sorts of characters come into his place on Wednesdays, which his wife wasn't knowledgeable of, and they were Greek Orthodox. And he loved it. He was a freak. We dressed in Dead Ringer scrubs. And so I started making fangs, and then I started dating this girl named Luciana after Dawn got sick. She was my first girlfriend, vampire girlfriend, she was like a fey vampire, Jewish werewolf vampire. She was
all those boxes, just mark them off.
Just check, and a witch.
Yeah.
Check. So it's hard to meet a girl to live up to it. But I met this girl from Parsons School of Design who went on to found Juicy Couture. Her name was Luciana, and she got into the games and says, I don't want to do math. I want to live this. So I started making fangs in 1995 after making my mom her first pair. My first pair was my mom in 1994, Christmas Day. I didn't have any money to buy her a Christmas present. I was 19 or 18, so I made her fangs. And she's been my muse, and she had a collection of my books. She sadly just passed away last December. But I watched the birth of the vampire community come out of the shadows. And it's a new aeon. And vampires can live in openness and everything like that. That's my mission, is to say vampires, like, it's a very strong allegory to the gay community. I watched the gay community go from, like, people hating it to people loving it. And I walked in Pride every year in New York. I did tours. I was a tour guide on the part-time. I would do Christopher Street tours. So I'm very qualified in the queer community.
So going back to the fangs, first of all, sorry for your loss. But
thank you.
I love that you have that memory that your first set of fangs was for your mom on Christmas Day. I think that's beautiful. When we look at fangs coming from a pagan perspective of it, I wanted to ask, like, is it like a symbol of some kind of initiation
Correct.
within a vampire's life? Okay. So for those of you that are listening or watching or may not know, with a lot of covens with witchcraft, when you get dedicated or initiated, you get cords. And this ties you to your coven. It's a very big deal, and it's very symbolic. And it lets you know, sometimes they can identify what coven you're in, or at least if you see that you show up to a ritual and you see someone in cords, you're like, okay, they know what they're doing. They belong somewhere. So when I was reading your book and learning a little bit more about this, I mean, it does say that, like, you do not have to practice anything within the occult to live as a vampire and be a part of this community, but they can overlap. And when I saw the fangs and mentions about this, it really reminded me of witches being courted.
That's kind of like it. The fangs are not esoteric or magical in any way, okay? They're dental prosthetics. And what is important to be aware of is the fangs represent 4 things. Okay, symbolism is a very big thing in the vampire community, and fangs are part of the symbolism, just like the vampire ankh, the bladed ankh from the Hunger. Okay. First thing is that they're a magic trick. Okay, you wear them and they're real to you and the person that's wearing them. Okay. The second thing is that they are a mask. When people put them on and go through the fang ritual, they put on kind of like a mask, and they have the psychology of wearing a mask, but it's on your teeth. Okay, so when you wear a mask and it's Halloween, you can be, people in haunts. I'm sure you've hung out with the people, and they exhibit a certain personality with lack of inhibitions. The third thing is that they're a connection to your primal nature. So when I make fangs, people howl, growl, do all sorts of things. And the final thing is they're an incredible sex toy. Okay. And I trademarked Sabretooth as a sex toy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, that's one of the categories that I went in. I just did it so I could say it was a sex toy.
I love that.
I have adult actresses using, and queer, I know a gay, a queer, I prefer queer, a queer Mexican vampire Fangsmith who does adult movies, and he wears his fangs, and I hope that he's gentle on his colleagues.
So have you developed, you're the world's most famous fangsmith, but have you developed a system that you have taught other people so that people can kind of say that they learned under you for this?
I don't do that. I've done it, and then fangsmiths are like Sith. Okay, for those of you who know how Sith work, the apprentice always has to kill the master.
Okay.
And
you're still standing, so.
I'm still standing, but I've had a couple situations where I've taught someone and they thought they could do it better, and we're no longer friends.
Got it.
But I do have very good rapport with Gary Archer, who did the Fangs for Interview with the Vampire and Blade. Okay, he's an amazing guy. He's an older gentleman who has a dental lab in Ventura, and you go in there and he helps me with my mail order. Okay, because he has all the equipment to do it and make the good molds and stuff, so we get the best fit for the customer. And he has a wall as big as this wall with those little mailer boxes with everybody in Hollywood, more than the Hollywood sign, more than the Hollywood Boulevard with the stars. You saw, name a celebrity.
Gosh, of course, now I can't. Kirsten Dunst, obviously she's
Boom.
got fangs, right?
I'm making my fangs next to the molds of Gary Oldman, sorry, not Gary Oldman, Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, and Kirsten Dunst, and Wesley Snipes. And everybody, he has shelves of boxes with impressions.
That's so cool.
Okay, and he's a really great guy, and it's an honor to work with him because he works analog, and we're doing a lot of 3D printing these days. So I held Sam Reed, the new Lestat, who's my favorite Lestat's impression, with his fangs, and I was like, I tried them on. I'm like, he's like, you can't fit those. I'm just like, I just want to put Lestat's fangs on.
Now, along with the fangs, people assume, like when I told them I was interviewing a real life vampire, like, oh, so do these people just go to parties and drink each other's blood?
Sure.
Is blood drinking a part of it? Because we couldn't agree. Because in this book, it sounds like it's not. But then
in this book, it does talk about sanguines.
Sanguines.
Yeah.
So let's get it clear on how vampires work. Okay, real vampires can go out in the sun. Okay, not all of them drink blood. Not all of them sleep in coffins, although that's a good sensory deprivation chamber. Okay, and it's good if you have roommates that are loud. You know? Vampires usually have a good sense of humor. Okay, vampirism, there are religions for vampires, but it's not a religion per se. Vampires do have a common narcissistic streak. Okay, there's ego in it. Okay, which not all narcissists are bad people. They're just narcissists. Okay, not all vampires live in California. Okay, New York was the capital for a long time. And what else? Werewolves and vampires are friends. That's not a Underworld. That was created by Underworld and Vampire the Masquerade. So there's three categories with a fourth category. In this, I get a little bit more things. So you have your sanguine vampires, who are blood drinkers. Okay, and they don't drink gallons of blood. They drink from consensual donors. Okay, but there's a couple limitations to that. First of all, getting the blood is difficult. Okay, because you got to have a relationship with someone. Okay, that's intimate as sex, if not more. There's different types of sanguine vampires. There's some sanguine vampires that believe that they need to drink blood for their mental and physical and spiritual health. Okay, there's some people that are called med-sangs who drink blood because they feel they need it for their physical health. And there's no metaphysical thing in. And then there's some that believe that it's the life force that they get, and it's the only way they can get it. Sanguine vampirism can be looked at in some ways as cannibalism. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, now that you bring it up, I'm like, yeah, I can see how that would kind of fall
The funny
that
thing
way.
is, we look at Christianity. Being raised Catholic, we're supposed to believe that wine is actually turned into his blood, and then we all stand in a line and we take our little sips. Like, that's very cannibalistic.
You're halfway
I do
there.
communion at my church.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
I go to the St. Thomas the Divine, which is a queer church in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And our priest is gay as fuck.
I've seen him on Grindr. No, just kidding.
Shit. And I've been baptized Presbyterian, and that is in the Anglican Communion. But back to the vampires. So you have sanguine vampires. Okay, not all sanguine vampires dress up and are in the fashion and stuff like that. Then you have psychic vampires, and there's so many different types of psychic vampires. There's ethical psychic vampires. There's unethical psychic vampires. Anton LaVey in his book, The Satanic Bible, talks about traditional psychic vampires, which are your ones that make drama and stress and try to feed off you, and the internet's helped them. Okay. Then you have life force vampires, which is a type of psychic vampire which is about life force. Okay, and dealing with that. And then you have Ascetian vampires, which are believed that they're descendants of Aset from ancient Egypt, which is the real name of Isis. Isis is the Greek goddess. Aset is the Egyptian goddess. So Asa is the actual goddess, and Isis is a Greek goddess. Okay, just like Hermes and Thoth. Thoth is Thoth is the Egyptian god, while Hermes is the Greek god. Then you have Caprians, which are kind of vampires from Atlantis kind of thing, but that's a whole different story. They believe in that vampires are made and they're altered, and I'll go into that in a little bit. And then you have your basic psychic vampires. Like, I met a girl last night. She came up to my Vampire Lounge in LA. We have the Vampire Lounge at Wednesday's party every week, and it's a bunch of my fang clients and vampires coming up and hanging out, drinking bloodbaths. And then you have your lifestyle vampires. And lifestyle vampires is an aesthetic or philosophical choice. We relate to the vampire archetype, archetypical vampires. And you hang out and wear fangs and dress up and go to parties. Or sleep in a coffin or drive a hearse. Okay? And we have all of 3 categories. Then there's black swans, which are friends. They're like girls in a gay club. They're not... And a lot of people think black swans are only donors. That's not the case. Black swans are allies, okay? But they can be a donor, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're a donor.
From what I actually had a question about black swans for you. So from what I read, yes, they're allies. That was my main takeaway, that they are allies to the vampire, and that they can be donors, whether it be energy mainly. I mean, if blood is their thing, that's cool. But it also talks a lot about how like they can participate in a lot of like the different lifestyle kind of like ethics and different things that are part of the vampire lifestyle and community. Is there like a definitive difference between black swan and vampire then? Because I feel like if you're a black swan that's really involved, like where is that line where you go from being that to a vampire?
It's in your heart.
Okay.
It's in your heart and your spirit. And then we have role players who play Vampire the Masquerade LARPing. Then there's vampire witches, which are called Strigoi, which are what I practice and what Sanguinomicon's about. And Black Veils is kind of like the 101 for everybody. And that's really the cast of characters, the identification of it. The vampire community has always been diverse. We don't need DIE or EI to do it. We're just organically that way. I mean, it's just normal. We're blacks and Hispanics and Asians and gays and queers and transgenders, and we were hanging out with transgender people and accepting them before the gay culture was. And it doesn't matter what you identify as. It's just, be clear on what you are. Okay, if you're discovering what you are, we can help you with that. We facilitate that. But once you mature and become developed and the goal is to find out who you are. Okay, and we were rejected by the goth community in the early 90s.
How come?
I'll give you a story. I was on 2nd Avenue and Avenue A and 2nd Street at a bakery and a bakery supermarket. Okay, it was one of those bougie East Village places. And what happened was there was this kid and his mom in front of me, and there was this goth, spiky hair, cardigan, big honking nose, British. He was British, obviously. No offense to British people, but he had Austin Powers teeth, and he was wearing skinny jeans and pointy boots, and he was buying a 6-pack of beer, and I was wearing a khaki, and because vampires don't always dress up in black, okay. And what happened was this little kid pulled on his cardigan and goes, "Are you a vampire?" And he took his sunglasses down and he goes, "No, child, I'm a goth." Vampires are mythology, and they're fake. And when I came into the vampire culture and into the goth scene in the 1990s, like, I got kicked out of clubs for wearing fangs.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my! You know what? I guess it just shows you how far we've come in like ways like that. Because I would just assume that like the goth community or maybe punk community would be alternative enough to kind of be like, "Hey, you're another weirdo like us. Come here." That's so disappointing to hear.
Well, we got revenge.
Okay.
We took over the whole club scene in New York, and there was a while where there was only vampire clubs. So the goths had to come to us. Okay. But things have changed since then, and girls play Vampire the Masquerade and D&D now, which is really cool. All right, I would die if I was, because I was like the kids in Stranger Things. All right, the total dork playing D&D.
The outcast.
And it was a really big deal back in the day. It was very taboo to play D&D. There's a whole satanic panic thing about it.
If you were a girl and you played D&D, your social life was over.
Yeah. And if you're a boy and played D&D, people assumed you were still a virgin.
Or a Satanist, yeah.
So what happened was I went to New Orleans in 1995 to the Memnock Ball. I met a girl at the Dark Shadows Festival, which was another place that real lifestyle vampires would gather. And her name was Sandy, and she was always wore Wednesday's outfits. I had a thing for Wednesday, Adult Wednesday. She was like 27 and I was 19. And I just made her fangs after making Neil, the Catholic priest from Nevada, fangs. And I made fangs for 3 Catholic priests in my day.
That's so awesome.
Yes. And what happened was she's like, I'm going to the Anne Rice Ball in New Orleans. And I'm like, the Anne Rice Ball? And she's like, yes, the Memnoch Ball, because Memnoch the Devil had just coming out. Interview with the Vampire. So we kept in touch over the summer, and then I went down to New Orleans, and I had the defining moment where Father Sebastiaan was born. Okay. I got to New Orleans, and I remember the gates, the sliding doors of the airport opened, and the heat just poured in. I'm like, oh, fuck. This is going to be crazy. So my Airbnb picked me up, and I got there, and Sandy was there at the Airbnb, because B&B, because Airbnb didn't exist yet. This was 1995. And it was like Tuesday, and I think it was Thursday, and the Anne Rice Ball was the next day. I had a velvet coat made, and I was like really excited. We got to the Anne Rice Ball, and there was 6,000 people outside of the orphanage in the French Quarter. And no, it was in it was called St. Elizabeth Orphanage in the Garden District. And it was nuts. It was like the best costumes I've ever seen in my life. It topped a standard. And around the corner came a hearse-drawn hearse, and out of the coffin, and they pulled 2 coffins out, and they put them up, and Anne Rice comes out of a coffin. And the crowd goes nuts. And then she goes, I got a surprise for you, and she pulls Kirsten Dunst out of the next coffin in the dress she died in Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, my God. That is so cool.
And she and Anne Rice got in a carriage in the front of St. Elizabeth's, and they greeted every single guest that came in, and then you walk through her doll collection, and then you get into the party.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is really cool. And so was this what inspired you to go on to make Endless Night?
Yeah, I wanted to bring the Vampire Ball to New York, so I went home and I started immediately working on the New York Vampire Ball, which eventually come under the brand of Endless Night. And there was an old guard vampire community in New York that was not really goth. It was more like Victorian things, and there was a cast of characters, like 40, 50 of them. And there was a thing called the Vampire Access Line, where you call up and it'd be like, welcome, vampires. And it would be like the cheesy vampire bars in Interview with the Vampire. In the vampire novels, there was these bars that would be these cheesy vampire bars in the front, and then in the back would be the secret room where vampires could let their fangs out.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
Yeah. So the cheese of the vampire mythos is pretty cool, but Vampire the Masquerade really launched there's a third wave of vampirism in the modern vampire mythos. So in Vampire the Masquerade, you have a universe called the World of Darkness, and then the vampires live in the cities and the werewolves live in the countryside. Okay, and there's a law called the Masquerade where you're not allowed to reveal yourself to humans. Okay, and it's about surviving as a vampire in this world. And Cain was the first vampire, and there's 15 generations of vampires. And then the 3rd generation created these 13 clans, and the clans have different archetypes, like the Tremere are the sorcerers, the Bruja are the warriors, which actually means witch in Spanish. Then you have the Tremere, the Toreador, were the artists and musicians, and the rock stars, and so on and so on. And each clan was like a character class in Dungeons & Dragons. But not. And when I after I got my fangs, I went into New York City, and people were using Vampire the Masquerade as a real lifestyle. And I'm like, so my girlfriend went to me, Luciana, she goes, Sebastian. She took the rule book and put it on the ground and said, I love the mythology, but I fucking hate the game rules. Okay, I'm a student at Parsons School of Design. I want to dress up and role play. Okay, I don't want to be rolling dice or doing finger things, rock, paper, scissors in a nightclub. I want to go have a drink and I want to get laid. Okay, I have a vampire fetish. All right, let's live it. So I took the lexicon of Vampire the Masquerade and I changed the rules to real world things. I took from the Renaissance Fair community and the SCA, the Society for Creative Anachronism. That's where we came in with the word houses instead of clans. Then I started the Court of Gotham, which was a vampire tea party and cocktail party where vampires could gather outside the nightclubs. And then I met her, the Empress of the Imperial Drag Queen Court of New York, Chichi Valenti. I threw a vampire ball at Limelight, and I was the last standing club promoter in that club after Michael Alec got arrested and put in Rikers Island. And we had 2,800 people. And that's the night in the middle of July 1996 that Susan Walsh, the reporter for the Village Voice, disappeared.
Totally disappeared.
And the media came down on me. They went nuts. And the golden age of the vampires of New York began, which was from 1995 to 2000. And I've created a family tree for my fangs. So I was running a business, and I was getting so much crap for running a business. Like, people are like, you're capitalizing on the vampire community. And I'm like, I'm making vampire culture. Okay? I got to pay for it. Do you want me to do it for free? Because I got to pay my rent. All right? And I always lived in humble apartments. And it just exploded. By 1998, I had a festival in New Orleans called the Endless Night Festival, where we blocked out all the sunlight in a hotel. Didn't really work, but we tried. And Endless Night was the brand that I put my parties under, and Sabretooth was the Fangs. So we had a shop with a retail front. We had a nightclub on Thursdays called Long Black Veil. And we had the quarterly New York Vampire Ball and the Vampire Ball in New Orleans at the Omni Royale Hotel, which eventually moved over to the House of Blues, and we're there today, 30 years later.
Now, Father Sebastiaan, for people that are new to hearing about this culture or have not read the book, what is the point of being a vampire? What's a vampire's life's mission? Because we assume it has to be
it depends on the type of vampire.
Live forever.
For me, it comes down to a word called kefir, which means to transform, evolve, and become. Okay, kefir is a continual journey, okay, of consistent self-improvement. Okay, keeping your vessel, your physical body healthy, your mind sharp, okay, and sharp as your fangs, okay, and being open-minded, okay. Kefir is about coming into being, okay. It's about evolution. It's basically self-help, but with fangs. And Kefir, there's different interpretations of Kefir. The Temple of Set, which is former branch of the Church of Satan, not branch of the Church of Satan, spin-off group of the Church of Satan, said Kefir is to come into being, which means becoming who you are. So that's really, for me, the center point of it, other than expression, okay? I remember I lived in France for 8 years, and the owner of the goth shop that I worked and made fangs in, I made fangs for every goth in France, basically. And people started coming in cardigans and normal clothes. And he's like, why are you making non-goths fangs? I'm like, oh, you should see 20 years ago. It was a different story, my friend. You couldn't get a goth to wear fangs. Okay. And it's about someone who has gender dysphoria, okay, becoming who they are. Okay, I dated a very famous transgender person in Europe, and she had her operation when she was 12. And I didn't know she was transgender. And we were out having a glass of wine by the Seine River, and she started taking pills, and I'm like, oh, those are your birth control. She's like, no, they're my hormones. And I was like, okay. And she's like, I want you to know before we kissed. Because it was out of respect, because she didn't know what my preferences were. And we dated for 6 months. And it was one of the most incredible relationships I had. But I can't reveal who she is, okay, because she's fairly famous. And the open-mindedness of the vampire culture is so amazing. The diversity and the home that people find there is just a magical thing. And we're all people that are autistic, mentally ill, have social problems, traumas, everything like that. And we find a home, okay, because I think that traumas are things that set you apart from the normal world, okay, is what the goth and vampire and punk and rock scene specifically the vampire scene is definitely it's a home for people. Okay, and the vampires host that home, whatever type, sang, sai, or lifestyle. And we are ahead of the game. Things happen. Polyamory and gay people and queer people were normal in the vampire scene in New York, okay, in 1996 and 1997, 1998. We're just normal to each other. We were it's just a beautiful place. Everybody was like in love with being happy and content. And the traumas that we had, or the rejection that we had in high school, or the bullying that we went through, gave us the strength to express ourselves. So that's the energy of the vampire community that I know.
I love that. And I love really how acceptant that is. It's just come here, celebrate who you are. And like, I love how you're like, if you don't know who you are, let us help facilitate that. I think that's a really beautiful thing, because there's so many people that need that. And I think that this creates a really amazing safe space for that, especially for people that feel like they're always on the outskirts.
And there's like a series of rites that you do on your own, like you do yourself, to the mirror, and that's really a point of self-discovery. And so it does celebrate the union of, the vampire culture, but again, like we said, your individuality and your own challenge is what you're going to challenge yourself. I love, like, even being financially wise is part of making a healthy life. Like, every aspect is covered.
Yeah. So what I find beautiful about the vampire community, and this was in the 90s, okay? We found a home at a club called Mother, okay, which was probably 5 of these rooms big. And I did that, aside from I made a lot of money on the vampire balls that I could put back into the community. Okay, I would always, like, if someone needed fangs and I couldn't afford them, I would try to make a good price for them. Okay, I would pay my employees really well. I give them health benefits. I tried to. They kind of didn't follow through on that. But I had them. And I trained a cadre of fangsmiths. And the fangsmiths, term fangsmith came out in 1997 and was really, 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 really picked up by the world. And 2 things went viral. The bloodbath cocktail, which was created by my Native American beautiful goddess, Ambrosia Della Milo, who I found at a bikini bar. All right. And she looked like a Betty Page, but Native American. And she had this cool totem tattoo on her arm. And I'm like, you need to come work with me at Long Black Veil and Mother. And she became I fought for her to get in there because I wanted to have a unique bartender. Okay, and she invented a cocktail for one of our architects of the vampire community, the founding fathers, which were me, DeDrennan, and Father Vincent. She became an integral part of the vampire community. And today she lives on a reservation in New Mexico. And she had a cadre of Native American vampires that were in the club. And everybody thought they were Hispanic. And they were real native from 6 different tribes. As far as I know, maybe 3 tribes. But it's nuts. It was like, I look at the natural, organic diversity that existed then, and how we all were tied together with fangs in the vampire archetype. And today it's like, it seems kind of like forced, but then it was just natural.
And really, you guys were ahead of the game with that, though. Like, you really were, because this was in the 90s.
But it was not intentional. It was just natural.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh my God, someone from a different culture. Let's bring them in and add them to the vampire culture.
Well, it's very funny because I had the opportunity to interview Christopher Rice, and he was talking about how his mom was talking about pansexuality, trans, queer, and all of these books. And I mean, she was writing this in the 70s, and there was no guidebook then. There was no community that she was actively talking to and doing this research. It was all natural themes that she was putting in because she celebrates the romance of everything and the beauty of everything, which is so special.
You know what? I never thought about that. So I grew up with a lot of these things from my neighbors and my uncles and all these things. So to me, it was always there. It wasn't until I got older that I realized that this was, quote, weird. But I also grew up with Anne Rice. And you're right, though. Like, she really did pioneer a lot of that.
Cry to Heaven is about castrati. And it's a beautiful history piece, but it's so romantic and beautiful and erotic. And it's about the castrati. And so it's like dealing with themes like that early on, and that's why I think her fans have gravitated so much to her. And like the whole vampire culture, Nosferatu's coming back out. Salem's Lot just had the redo. Interview with the Vampires now, a TV show. Yeah. Blade is coming back. Like, where
I hope they do Wesley Snipes.
It's not. It's I forget what his name is.
But he did just come in the new, Deadpool. Yeah, he was Blade in that, so that's cool. Okay, so I know we're limited on time, and I feel like we have just barely scratched the surface here. Mm-hmm. But I do have one question. You did bring up the concept of a vampire witch, and I would love to know a little bit more about the spiritual cosmology behind that.
It's a witch that sucks.
I know a bitch that sucks, but that's a whole other story.
Oh, I mean, there's so many different paths of witchcraft. Is this something that is it its own type of tradition of magic?
It's basically a life force vampire who uses magic.
Okay, but is it like Wiccan magic, like traditional magic?
It's not Wiccan.
Okay.
It's eclectic.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, and you have the term chaos magic is also a term.
Well, that's the Strigoi system. Strigoi means living vampire witch in Romanian. Okay. And I met a guy that was a member of the Temple of the Vampire, which is very vampire witchcraft. The two first groups of vampire practitioners were the Order of the Vampire and the Temple of Set, starting in 1984. And then in 1989, the Temple of the Vampire came out. And the Temple of the Vampire believes that humans are food. Okay, and they're made for vampires to feed on. And that's a little controversial, but humans don't believe in vampires, so what's the problem?
Fair enough.
Okay, but their system is in taking the empowering vampire aspects, like the nobility of the vampire, the evolution. They think that vampires are the next step of human evolution. And they're a religion out of Lacey, Washington, founded by a guy named Magister Nemo, who's a member of the Church of Satan. But they're into cryonics and technology but they're energy vampires. They're life force vampires. And they don't consider themselves psychic vampires, although they kind of go under that category. And they talk about evolution and a lot of the things that inspired Strigoi came from the Temple of the Vampire. But Temple of the Vampire is kind of controversial in their views, while Strigoi is something that's more down to earth and relatable to the average person.
We know that eternal life is a big part of vampire lore. Tell our listeners what the vampire culture's idea of the afterlife is, what eternal life means in the real scheme of things.
It depends on the individual, and there's two types of immortality. There's dayside immortality, which is living forever, okay, which is the dayside is the mundane muggle world, okay, through science and technology, cryonics, life extension, everything like that. The Temple of Vampire has been in that since the 90s, okay. Then there's nightside immortality, which is the magical immortality, which is like the spiritual immortality, like reincarnation and stuff like that. So there's a whole variety of different things, but those are the two foundations of it. And vampirism is about taking life force from other humans for your benefit. So I do it with honor and respect. Okay, just like, the typical legend of the Native American praying before the deer before he takes its life and thanking for its soul, and may it die a painless death, and thank for feeding the family. I have a code of honor towards, like, I don't feed off children or old people or sick people or anything like that. And I don't feed directly off people without consent. And that's the Strigobite code. It's the Black Veils code. Okay, but if I go to a playground and I see a kid going really crazy, all right, I just look at them and then they calm down for their mom.
Can you teach me how to do that? That's
children?
Amazing. Yes, I do.
How many?
I have one. He's a toddler, but you're saying this, and I'm like, I need to know how to do this.
I can teach you how to put them to sleep.
I am all here for it. Okay. Okay, thank
Vampire
you.
Babysitter's like the
There
next
we
big
go.
thing.
I love it. I'm so excited about this. I will.
So we acknowledge that every person, like, one thing that the vampire community does is doesn't skirt around bullshit. Okay, we have our own dramas, all right, but we acknowledge the traumas that we have and turn them into superpowers.
I think that's really amazing, and that is what real, like, transmuting energy really is about. When you work with energy, which is what it sounds like you're doing, we are working with life force energy, almost like energy healing in a way. It's like there's a lot of, like, the same kind of concepts here, but what you have to do is, well, with certain modalities that I've been trained with, is you find the block, you find the trauma or the ouchie, right? And you have to transmute it, not necessarily just heal it and neutralize it, but find a way to empower yourself with it.
Yeah, that's true.
And we've talked about that theme through the Akashic records, the Exorcist that we had. It's all along the same kind of lines, which, I find fascinating. We've talked about how everything kind of comes from the Egyptian culture, which we know is a part of the vampire world too.
Very, very.
But I got to meet
much so.
Ozzy Osbourne last week.
Did you really?
Yeah, I did a picture with him and my partner.
Oh my God.
That is so cool.
That's amazing.
My partner and I use the term partner out of respect to the gay community.
That's cool. So did you get to do fangs for him?
No. He was at Monsterpalooza and doing photos for $300, and I was like, my friend called me up on Sunday morning, and he was like, she went, Ozzy's doing pictures, sign up now, okay, and I got to sit next to him for 36 seconds. I got to shake his hand, and he goes, "It's good to meet you, vampire." Or, "It's good to meet you, vampire." I'm trying to do a British accent. I'm so bad.
That is awesome. Okay, so we do have to get wrapping up, but is there any message that you have for anyone that is interested to learn more? They think that this is something that speaks to them, that they want to discover more. Anything for, like, our novice vampires or baby vamps out there?
I suggest reading Black Veils because it's an easy book to read, and it really gives the message that vampire is not a negative thing. Okay, there's negative things in there, and you can get it on Amazon. I revise it every 2 or 3 years, and it's kind of like we got a really. There's even a chocolate Black Veil.
A chocolate Black Veil? Is there?
Yeah, there's a gourmet Black Veil, chocolate, absinthe. There's, like, we took all the empowering parts of the vampire culture and put them in 500-word essays. So you have chivalry, honor, entrepreneurship. Remember when George Bush said entrepreneurship, a French word?
And I'm going to tell people, because I read this, it's not about putting on the outfits and putting the fangs on. It really is subscribing to a way of life. And there are definitely strict rules, and there are different hierarchies within the culture. So it's heavy.
But isn't it also so amazing, because this is something that, think back to being a kid. This is something that would have been frowned upon. The grown-ups would have kept you away from people like this, blah, blah, blah. But really, it is so empowering and so positive and accepting and wonderful.
And inclusive.
And it's just something that so many people, it just shows you, like, if you don't explore outside of your comfort zone, you're never going to know all of the wonderful things that you're missing.
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for coming on. And like I said, we have just scratched the surface with this. I highly recommend that you guys pick up the books. I read Black Veils. You read which one?
Strigobite.
Strigobite.
That's the Strigobite Codex, also known as Sanguinomicon.
There we go, Sanguinomicon. Yes, so you have a couple books out there. Where can people find you if they want to know more about the books, the Endless Night Vampire Ball?
One place, endlessnight.com.
You guys go check him out at endlessnight.com, and you have a ball coming up probably this weekend since we're close to Halloween.
Taylor Swift fucked that up.
Oh, no.
We had to do November 2nd.
Well,
We moved Halloween because Taylor Swift. High Halloween is the weekend in New Orleans
Yes.
that we celebrate. Oh, we just sold more tickets. High Halloween is the Chi Valenti, the Empress of the Imperial Drag Queen Court of New York, came to my party last year. And we call her Mom because she had Mother from the 90s, the club Mother, where all the vampires hung out. Because we were rejected by the goths, so we went to the gays. And so she goes, High Halloween got ruined by Taylor Swift. I'm like, Mom, what are you talking about? And 30 years later, Mother Culture is still a color. It closed in May 2000, June 20th, 2000. And we're still a family. And I could do a whole story on that. But what is interesting is that Taylor Swift came in and booked out every hotel room in the city, like a small economy. 250,000 people came in town for that. And my friends that own Sassy Magick, it's a plug. Hello Kitty meets the craft. Okay. Check out Sassy Magick with the Wilds. They're Canadians that invaded New Orleans. They have 3 shops down there that one of them is called I call it the Barnes and Nobles of the occult. But it's all pink and stuff like that. It's really funny. And it's Sassy Magick. So what I suggest, and you can buy my books there. You can buy both of them there. What I suggest doing is avoiding Taylor Swift at all costs.
I got you. I am right there with you on that one.
And we had to move Halloween from High Halloween, which is usually the Saturday before Halloween, even if Halloween's on a Thursday. We had to move High Halloween to the next weekend. So we get Halloween on a Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we're doing Day of the Dead.
You know what? That is really cool. I also realized that we're sitting here talking crap about Taylor Swift, and all these Swifties are going to come for us. They can feel the stampede coming because everyone loves her. Don't come at
They'll
me.
have a GoFundMe for tickets to buy us tickets so we go to the concert and go, oh my God, it was so good.
Yeah, you have to convert us. Well, again, thank you so much, you guys. Endlessnight.com. Go check it out. Go explore. Go explore yourself and the culture and all of it. Sounds really exciting.
It's about energy and way of life.
I think you and I have a date for next Valentine's Day weekend to go to the LA Endless Night. I think that's what's up.
Yeah.
It's called Night of the Blood Countess.
Yes. I'm in.
I'm all for that.
I'm in.
Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe, review. If you want to get involved, you want to read the blogs, you can also chat with us. You can leave us your ghost stories, actually. You can leave us voicemails. It's Steampipe?
Speakerpipe.com/queer from the other side, and you literally leave us a voicemail with your ghost stories.
And we will be sharing those on some upcoming episodes, so stay tuned for that. Don't be shy. And until next time, stay spooky.
Rock and roll.
That was another episode of Queer from the Other Side.
Please like, share, review, and subscribe.
Until next time, stay curious.